In German-occupied Belgium, around the beginning of World War II, a group of Flemish resistance fighters under the command of Stan, known for their bloody and brutal tactics on Nazi forces, are tasked with a special mission in Belgian Congo. The mission was assigned to them in a secret meeting held by the Allied force officials. Despite the protest of an English official in the meeting, Lieutenant Mies, the leader of the mission and an officer of the head of the Belgian government, was the one who strictly insisted on Stan and his crew. Stan has a personal hatred for the Germans. He is known for his violent show of force on German captives. After one of their missions, a German official is captured. They were supposed to question him first. Stan first tortures him by drowning him in a bathtub full of water. Then, without asking any questions, he throws a grenade into the bathtub and blows the head of the German official. His brutality comes from being captured and tortured by Nazi police officers for hiding a Jewish family in his home. They also killed his wife and left his kid to drown in a water tank. Stan has nightmares regularly about these events. Now he is only left with a daughter, whom he is very protective of, Nadine, who is an excellent shooter but is very tired of being left out of the missions. She is in a secret relationship with Flip, a member of Stan's crew. Stan has yet to tell the truth about her mother and her younger brother. A messenger is sent to recruit him for the mission, which also comes with a large sum of money. He initially wanted to reject it because it would take him away from hunting the man who killed his family. But he accepts it when the messenger tells him the mission would help kill a lot of Nazis, and Philip suggests it would benefit the safety of Nadine. They arrive in Belgian Congo, where a captured German U-boat is waiting for them. The U-boat was a military boat with diving capability, designed for naval combat. They are greeted by Lieutenant Mies. He invites them and explains to them about the mission. The mission was to operate the captured U-boat and deliver raw materials of uranium purchased by President Roosevelt from the Shinkolobwe mines in Congo, which are owned by the Belgian government, to the United States for the Manhattan Project, the project behind the development of the atomic bomb, a weapon of mass destruction. To help them operate the U-boat, a captured German U-boat commander named Franz Jaeger was brought on board to train the crew within 3 weeks. It was revealed that Franz was persuaded to cooperate by Lieutenant Mies with a proposal to let him go free and see his son if he agreed to train the crew. Now the training was in session. Franz gives a basic introduction to the different sections of the room. The first compartment was the front of the boat, the bow. The first room is the front torpedo room. The front torpedo room has 4 torpedo tubes and a few torpedoes. The torpedoes are heavy, each weighing over 1,000 kilograms. Next to the torpedo room were toilets, captain cabins, officers' beds, and the radio room, which has a 200-watt transmitter. Next, there was the command room, from which a captain controls everything. After the command room was the galley, the place where foods are cooked. Now the next most important room, the machine room. The machines have a huge capacity of 3,200 horsepower, and in addition to that, operate with diesel when they are on the surface and when they are underwater. Lieutenant Mies assigns the crew specific job assignments on different sections of the U-boat. Stan was assigned first officer. He was to make sure that the crew carried out the orders of the lieutenant. Tommy and Klisa were assigned to engine duty. Werner was assigned to radio and sonar. Finally, Van Prague, the youngest crew member who wanted to play soccer sometime in the future, was assigned to trim tanks. After the briefing of Lieutenant Mies, Stan speaks to Nadine, who was confused because she was not assigned any task. He tells her that he has arranged for her to leave on another boat, which will come to deliver the uranium. Nadine protests at first, but she accepts her father's decision, believing she has no choice. On the other hand, Franz gives each of the crew members a manual of the ship, and he also personally gives different instructions on how to operate different machines on the boat. After a few lessons, the crew adjusted well to the training. Werner in particular has adapted well, since his assignment was suited to his specialty. Franz and Nadine spend some time together, thinking this is the last time they will see each other. The next morning, well before the crew could proceed to practice what they learned in theory and complete their training, Werner intercepted a communication between the Germans. The cargo was still being loaded from the other boat. German warships were approaching from a distance. The warships have come to reclaim the U-boat. The warships were alerted by the captain of the boat, who immediately leaves the place when he is discovered by Stan. Lieutenant Mies immediately goes down into the U-boat and demands Franz to start the engines so that they can live. He even threatens him with a gun, but Franz, who thought he held up his end of the deal, refused to comply. In the struggle to get the gun, Franz shoots and kills Lieutenant Mies. Stan takes charge of the crew and forces Franz to help them. They start their journey to the United States. They start to dive underwater to avoid being detected by the warships. With Franz leading the way, and the help of Jenga, a French-speaking Congolese muscular worker left by his employer while he was loading the cargo. They evade the warships, but Werner detects the noise of an airplane. The U-boat was well hidden underwater until Klisa, who was trying to flush the toilet, accidentally flooded the toilet, which caused the batteries to release chlorine gas, forcing them to resurface. Now they are face to face with the plane. It was a German military plane, which kept circling them. They couldn't fire on him while he was circling. The man on the plane was waiting for an opportunity to attack them while they were diving, which is how the German fighter pilots were trained, according to Franz. Suspecting that the pilot has called for reinforcements, they choose to quickly dive as the pilot advances to launch an attack. Stan takes a risk and heroically shoots and destroys the plane while the U-boat was diving. This stunt almost gets him killed, but he survives. Stan and his crew should have completed half of their journey now, but Jaeger finds out that they didn't travel in the appropriate course. They were behind for about 8 hours. Philip was the one who was responsible for this department. Franz finds him sleeping with Nadine. He tries to cover for them with Stan, but he couldn't. An angry Stan almost drags Philip into the torpedo tube, but Nadine stops and intervenes on behalf of her lover. She then proceeds to declare a marriage ceremony on the surface. The ceremony was interrupted as Stan alerted his crew to the coming German warships. They cease everything, and they dive once again. Now Philip goes to talk to Nadine. She tells Philip about being angry at her father for being a control freak. After hearing her plan to introduce him to her mother, Philip tells her the truth about her mother and younger brother. It is revealed that it was Philip who found Stan and his family in their home after they were killed. While all was going on, a torpedo was launched out of nowhere. The crew further dives deeper to escape it. The torpedo missed by a narrow margin. They go to full stop, then proceed to shut the engines down and go quiet. Franz then instructs 2 of Stan's crew members to ready the torpedo. The communication specialist in Stan's crew accidentally opens a phonograph, and loud music is heard. This gives the location of the boat to the enemy. To make matters worse, the torpedo fell on the legs of Van Prague, who was adjusting the torpedo to a firing position. Jenga manages to lift the torpedo with all his strength as they pull Van Prague out. They start the engines and propel the boat into another direction, but the enemy has already fired another tornado. It grazes the side of the ship and misses its target due to an error in maintaining a minimum safety distance mechanism. Stan's crew adjusted the torpedo to a firing position. They quickly launch and destroy the enemy ship, but the impact of the blast caused their U-boat some damage, forcing them to resurface back. Van Prague was going to shock, and to save his life, they had to amputate his leg. Stan gives Franz a key to unlock his chain to help him better manage the U-boat. They have a drink and talk about Van Prague. While the crew was resting, they were woken up by the sound of a horn. It was a German destroyer. The destroyer has the U-boat at a firing distance. The destroyer starts to communicate on the radio channel. Franz plays along and speaks with the Germans. He responds to the question about why the U-boat is off course by telling them that he hit a mine and has veered off course as a result. The destroyer insists on sending help, and Franz allows them to come over to avoid suspicion. The Germans came aboard, and the crew pretended to be German sailors, and nobody suspected anything with only Franz speaking. He invites the German officials to a drink, and everyone plays along. At this particular time, Van Prague wakes up and he starts to scream in pain. The Germans send one of their officials claiming that he has medical training. While the German official is suggesting morphine for the pain, Van Prague screams in Flemish, and their cover is blown. A fight breaks out between the Germans and the crew. Van Prague, Werner, and all members of the German boarding party were killed. Franz kills the last member while the officer was about to shoot Stan. He tells Stan and the crew that he saw cruel German experiments of torture with just cold water, and argues against allowing the Germans to get their hands on the raw material of the weapon of mass destruction. The destroyer starts to suspect that something is wrong. They aim the gun on their deck at the U-boat and start to send signals with lights. Before the destroyer can take action, Nadine goes outside and takes a well-aimed shot with a special bullet, which disables the destroyer from firing back. Stan and his crew begin to dive immediately, but they couldn't dive well because of a fuse malfunction. This gives the opportunity to ram the U-boat, causing it to drown at the bottom of the sea. In the quickly flooding U-boat, the crew is split in half in their efforts to escape the flooded compartments by traveling from one to the other. One half of the crew is stuck in the front part of the U-boat, while the other half is trapped in the bottom part of the U-boat, as it now has reached the seabed. On one side, Tama has drowned, as he was not able to get out because his wristwatch was stuck on some pipe. Nadine is also about to meet the same fate, as she was also trapped in a slowly filling compartment behind a metal door blocked by a fallen pipe. Stan on the other side has sustained an injury on his liver due to pieces of of bolts of metal breaking due to water pressure. He gets patched up with some pieces of cloth. He goes to the other side of the U-boat, where he sees his daughter trapped. After seeing Nadine, he goes out through the torpedo tubes and swims towards the flooding compartment where his daughter is trapped. He removes the fallen pipe and rescues her. Nadine was underwater for a long time, but she was resuscitated by the valiant effort of Stan, who was determined not to lose his only family. Franz chooses to make the ultimate sacrifice by swimming to the flooded command deck of the U-boat and resurfacing it. Before he goes, Klisa gives him the picture of his son. Franz makes the sacrifice and drowns, holding the picture tightly. While the U-boat ascends, Stan, bleeding out from the injury to his liver, speaks his last word to both Philip and Nadine before he dies. He gives Philip a ring, a sign of his blessing of their marriage. He then asks Nadine to forgive him about her mother and her little brother. 4 years later, the surviving members of the crew, including Philip and Nadine, who have a son now, are seen relaxing on a beach, while a radio broadcast announces that an atomic bomb has been dropped on the city of Hiroshima by the order of President Truman.